Hey everyone, what is going on? My name's Archer Live, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Payday 3 in the possibly spiritual successor to the first video I did on Payday 3 back in January of this year. In that video I just threw a bunch of theories at the wall hoping that some would stick, get you guys talking about what you thought about the game, what things you'd like to see, and the end goal being that hopefully maybe Overkill would see it, see some of the things we were talking about, and maybe that would influence how the game was made. Now that video at this point of recording is nearly 130,000 views, so thank you all so much for swinging by on that video, checking it out, giving it a listen, passing your opinions in the comments. I honestly appreciate it so much. Not to mention I made that video with my old really dodgy microphone, which just sounds really bad, so if you actually managed to stick up with that microphone and just go right through the video, thank you so much for doing that. It means the world to me. But this time we are a lot more professional. I've got some things written down. I've gone against my usual tradition of just structuring videos like a conversation where I'll just talk to you guys as if it was a normal conversation talking to two people. I don't like scripted things too much sometimes for my videos. For other people's they're fine, but this time I've got so many things running around in my head that I want to cover in this video that I figured the best thing to do will be to write everything down, and that way I can structure the video a bit better, split it into categories, and just go from there. Now those of you who saw last week's video know that I actually asked you guys to leave comments with some of the things you'd like to see in Payday 3, or just generally for me to talk about in this video. I've picked a few of those out. I've looked on the other Payday 3 video as well, and just seen what else there is to go by there. Most of it I'm just going to sum up as I'm talking, but most of the comments will actually come that I'm going to screenshot from last week's video, because there were a few that I thought were worth just pointing out and using in the discussion. But without further ado, let's get into talking about Payday 3, and to start off with, we're going to be discussing the ending of Payday 2 and what that means as a result for how Payday 3 will work. Now, Payday 3 was first announced back in May 2016, when Overkill and Starbreeze Studios bought the complete rights to the Payday franchise at the same time that Payday 2 reached its 100th update on PC. Very little information was given at that time. They just basically announced that it was in development, they were working on it, and over the last 2 years we have had very little information over Payday 3's development, what's been going on, and what's going to feature in the game in terms of characters, settings, heists, loads of stuff like that, things we will get into in this video. But it felt like the right time to talk about Payday 3 now that Payday 2 has just come to an end. And as a recap, for those of you who need a refresher, or those of you who haven't seen the cutscenes, in which case, spoilers if you are bothered about any of Payday 2's storyline, but the final cutscene that you unlock through the secret ending for Payday 2 is a 7.5-minute clip known as Offshore Payday. In that clip, most of the Payday gang members, either by name or by face, are featured in the clip, as well as some contractors, and it basically ties up a great deal of loose ends. For instance, Jiro goes back to Japan alongside Sangres, Clover goes back to Ireland taking Oldstone, the safe house's butler, with her. There's loads of little loose ends tied up, and certain things are answered, such as where Vlad was for the last couple of years, what happened to the Butcher after Alaskan Deal. They tied up a lot of things, and it insinuates that the gang are done with heisting, because right at the end it's revealed, or at least severely hinted, that Bain was reincarnated to be the President of the United States. And you might ask, well, at that point, what else is there the Payday gang can do? This cutscene was then followed up by a 5-minute credit sequence, which was basically talking about the most common theories in the so-called underworld about what happened to the Payday gang heisters. This credit sequence heavily implies that the gang split up. They all went their own separate ways. For instance, Dallas bought a yacht called Medic Bag. Some of the former heisters would join him on his adventures sometimes, but he's still around the world, telling stories about the past heists they'd accomplished and just genuinely having a good time. And then you've got other people such as Dragon setting up a gym, or Sydney going to help people in impoverished conditions, which funny enough was actually what a voice actor does, so you can tell where the inspiration came from there. But basically they say that all the different crew members have gone off in their own directions, sometimes in groups of 2, depends on the situation and the characters that they've talked about. But basically the gang is split up. They've all gone their own separate ways, they've all got their own stories to pursue after this, and they don't really need to do much more because the quote-unquote greatest heist of all has been completed, which was putting Bain in the seat of power in the White House as President of the United States of America. So one of the most common theories right now is that there won't actually be any returning characters from Payday 2 because it logically doesn't make sense for any of the heisters to come back. Well, here's my little tidbit of thought on this topic, and that is those credits are not in any way linked to the offshore clip, bar the fact that Dallas's yacht called Medic Bag is there. And they've said Clover's gone back to Ireland, a few other bits like that, but the main gang are all still together in that clip. Now, just because Dallas has bought that yacht at that point, that doesn't necessarily mean they can't do more heists. So my opinion is that after the White House heist is concluded and you see the offshore Payday clip, that there's actually a potential of some time between Payday 2's ending and all these rumours surfacing about the gang where they could potentially go on at least one more adventure, in other words, filling up a third Payday game. It's very possible they could work it that way. Obviously, the characters in the clip who are explained to have gone, such as Clover or Jiro or Sangres, the chances are because of that they probably won't come back, but it still leaves it very open for at least the original 4 to return if possible, and who knows, maybe some other characters. The only other question on that front then is which other heisters will join the original 4 should they come back into Payday 3. Now, this was a very big topic in the comment section of the first Payday 3 video. There are a lot of people giving their tidbits of thought. People want to see Jacket come back, or Jimmy, or John Wick. Everyone has their favorite character, and everyone wants to see a certain character back. There isn't one heister where there's nobody who wants to see them return to the game, and that's fair. Everyone likes their own characters, but my issue is that, first off, I don't see them releasing a game with 22 characters. That's pushing it a bit. I mean, you can take away Jiro and Sangres, take away Clover, take away Duke, who apparently bought a museum as well, so at least those 4. I can't remember everyone else off the top of my head, but that still leaves at least 18 heisters that could potentially reprise their roles. I don't see them starting with that many people. I think purely they will start with the 4 characters, the original 4. Whether it'll be Houston or Hoxton, we'll have to see, but I would like to see it be Hoxton because he already missed out once, and we don't have to do another quote-unquote Hoxton breakout for him to come back just because Pete Gold wasn't available at the time of the game's development. But that doesn't necessarily mean that in future updates they can't add more Payday 2 characters back. For example, take First World Bank for discussion. Now, obviously, this is not a heister. We're talking about a heist here, but this is something returning from Payday 1. The very first game had First World Bank as one of its core heists, and they brought it back to Payday 2, but it wasn't there at the start of the game. It was only added in Spring Break 2015. Now, this is a technique they could employ with some, but not all, of the heisters from Payday 2. If, for instance, a lot of people want to see Jacket come back, he could come back if they want to. If people want to see John Wick, if people want to see Sydney. Depending on who are the fan favorite characters, they could potentially put some back, but just not necessarily at launch. But to sum up this section of the video, I would say they will bring back at least some of the classic heisters purely because they want to have some link between Payday 1, 2, and 3. If they completely cut themselves off with Payday 2, a game that has done so well for Overkill, I think that would get a poor reception just off the amount of characters in the game. I mean, granted, new characters are always good, and I expect there to be plenty of new characters in Payday 3, but having a few classics is always good for the little bit of nostalgia feel and just drawing a few people back into the game. The next topic I want to cover is something a little bit smaller, but something I still want to touch on nonetheless, because it's something I've been asked about quite a lot, which is who's going to be the new quote-unquote instructor for the Payday gang. I don't know the official name for the role, if there even is one, to be honest, but basically what I'm trying to say is who is going to take over Bain's role as the person talking the gang through their heists, what to do, give them objectives, and all that good stuff. As most of you will know, Bain was the main instructor from 2013 at the game's launch right up until the end of 2017 with the Reservoir Dogs heist, where he was attacked and captured and kidnapped by the dentist and Kotaru. Now, he did come back very slightly, but even when he came back in breaking news, there wasn't actually a full-on heist where he gave a full commentary other than No Mercy, but that was a flashback heist, so that does not apply. As a result, after Bain was kidnapped and taken hostage, Locke took over as the instructor, something that was welcomed by the majority of the Payday community, which was great because I personally really liked seeing Locke take on such a big role and stepping up. But Locke basically took over and became our instructor going forward on heists such as Breaking Feds, Henry's Rock, Shacklethorne Auction, and so on and so forth. Locke became our instructor and telling us where everything was and talking us through objectives. The key thing I want to point out here is that if they do choose to do another person completely different to Payday 2 to be our instructor, there is proof there that we can have someone who isn't Bain. Now, the issue is we already knew Locke. We knew Locke as a contractor from the 2015 Point Break heists, so it is still a bit of a step to say they could get someone completely new in, but here are my top 2 theories for who I think could take Bain's place as the instructor. First up, it's Locke, the murky water officer who became a contractor after he found CrimeNet whilst trying to investigate the Payday gang. For those of you who don't know, he contacted Bain, told him he'd found out about CrimeNet and actually found solid evidence of its existence and threatened to leak it all out unless he coerced the Payday gang into doing some jobs for him. The funny thing is beyond this, he wasn't actually seen for quite a while until he came back in the Search for Kento event, helped with Heat Street, and going forward when Bain was kidnapped, he became the main instructor, as I've already mentioned. Personally, I was a very big fan of Locke's, and I know a lot of other people were as well. I think his character was really interesting, and it was a very good replacement for Bain. But the question is, will Locke come back again? Could he be the new instructor for Payday 3? Personally, I think Locke could quite easily come back as the instructor for Payday 3, if only because Ian Russell, his voice actor, has constantly said that he would be very happy to return in Payday 3 should Overkill give him the opportunity. He doesn't know anything about it, he hasn't got much idea of what's going on, but he knows that he would be very willing to go back into the game if he was offered the potential to do so. I know a lot of people would really like to see Locke back, I myself included would really like to see him, even if he's just a contractor and not the instructor. I think it'd be a waste of his character if he didn't come back for some more, alongside some of the other heisters. The second option is Dallas, and this is a weirder one because it's more likely depending on which ending is canon. Now, I think Offshore Payday is the canon ending. I said in that clip video that both cutscenes happen together. I've since done some more research into it and just basically figured it out, and I don't think they're both in the same universe. I think Somewhere in Mexico was a hint that there was more to happen with the game. The fact that Dallas held onto his mask and walked away was a sign to the players saying, you might think the game's over, but it's not done yet. There's a secret ending. Go kill the dentist and get the proper cutscene. So I think Somewhere in Mexico and Offshore Payday happened in opposite universes. So it's possible that if they go in the one direction where Bain isn't the president, which they could do, I mean, it's something that people haven't thought about as much. They could go in that direction, so the president is still just the president and not Bain. But Dallas was the only heister in Somewhere in Mexico who didn't throw his mask down into the hole where Bain was buried, alongside every other heister who threw their masks, apart from Jacket, who threw his tape recorder in. However, in Offshore Payday, he's just as done as every other crew member. They're all celebrating the end and the completion of the greatest heist of all. So in Somewhere in Mexico, it is more likely Dallas could come back, he could reprise his role, but this time, maybe because he's one of the older crew members, come back the way Bain did after he'd stopped the life of crime, actually being involved in the robberies. Instead, take the back seat, talk everyone else through it, and give them his experience to help them get through their own heists. It's very possible that Dallas could pull that off. I would really like to see either Simon Kerr or Eric Etabari, the voice or face of Dallas, come back and do that job. I think it would be brilliant. I think almost, to be honest, if they were going to become an actual instructor, that Eric Etabari, the live action performance and the face of Dallas, would be better for a commentator than Simon Kerr, the actual voice of Dallas currently. I know that's probably an unorthodox opinion, but I think for a instructor the way Bain sounds and trying to be similar to that kind of thing, I think Simon Kerr's voice is a bit too memey at this point with the whole medic bag thing, so I don't know, it's a more difficult one. But if Somewhere in Mexico is not the canon ending and the right ending is Offshore Payday and that's the one they're going to go with going forward, then it's less likely Dallas could reprise his role. But I just thought it was something I was put out there. Leave it to you guys to discuss, and you can always let me know what you think down in the comments section below. And of course, it could be neither of these, it could be someone completely new, but honestly, we don't know. My top theory is that it'll be Locke. I would really like to see Locke keep his role and just continue being the instructor, but time will tell, and as more information comes out, we'll see how that plays out. The next thing I'd like to discuss is the setting for Payday 3. Where will the heists mainly take place? As you all know, Washington DC was the key setting for Payday 2 and also the key setting for Overkill's The Walking Dead. So people are probably wondering, will they stick to Washington DC? Well, I would say 100% no. They're going to try and find a new location, and if Bain is the president in Payday 3's universe, they're probably going to want to go somewhere outside of America so as not to compromise Bain's position as leader of the country. I think they could go anywhere. A lot of people are saying different things, like the UK or Asia or Australia. There are loads of locations people have been throwing around in the air, and honestly, I think they could go for a more worldwide approach this time and have heists all over the world. They have had the occasional one here and there. For instance, they had one in Russia with Boiling Point. They have done some occasions sometimes where they've travelled further afield than Washington DC, but a lot of it's been based inside Washington. So seeing a more diverse option where there isn't really a particular setting but they go anywhere and just have a safe house in a specific location that they can always come back to would be a much nicer approach, so that it feels that they're having more of an influence over the entire world rather than just being the biggest gang in America. And then you also have the opinion about an open world, which is something that I saw quite a lot in the old video, not so much this time around, but a lot of people wanted free roam where you could just walk into any store in a specific map and rob it and get away with it and be able to roam an open free world and do what you want. Now, the problem with that is I don't think Overkill, with the greatest respect to them, have the technical capability to pull off a game that big, to actually have a game where you can just go anywhere and rob anything in an open world. For instance, I think they will stay with the specific heist setting. They've done it with Overkill's The Walking Dead. You can have specific missions that you go to and complete. They'll do it with Payday 2. It happened with Raid. You started free roam to an extent with the operations in Raid World War II, but their main focus was doing the raids, which were preloaded in certain locations. So they could have a very small hub, but I don't really think in that hub they'd have too many things you could rob. I think the main robbery things would come from these specific heists you'd load up and play every time over and over. So it's a nice thought to have an open world. I'd like to see it, but I honestly just don't know, and I don't really see it happening. But the heists could be set anywhere. They could focus in somewhere specific like London or Moscow or Melbourne. They could go anywhere they wanted to, but I personally believe that having a more worldwide approach where they could go to any city, they could go to London or Melbourne or Moscow, and not just set in a certain place and have all the heists there, but travel across the world, have influence across the world, and maybe make the Payday gang even more infamous than they were before. It's an interesting idea, and as always, your comments about what I say would be very much appreciated, but that's where I stand in terms of setting. This is a topic that I hadn't even thought to discuss, honestly, until a comment was left on one of my recent videos, asking for my thoughts on whether any classic heists from Payday 2, or even Payday the Heist, would come into Payday 3, and have some touch of, like, nostalgia in the heists in the gameplay. It's something I hadn't thought about, but when you think about it, the entirety now of the first Payday game, all of its heists are on Payday 2 on PC, and very soon we'll have Diamond Heist and No Mercy on console, completing the entire set for us as well. So that brings up the question of whether they'll bring back heists from Payday 2 or even Payday the Heist into Payday 3. My simple answer is yes, I think they'll do that because there are some classic heists in both games that people might want to see return. And honestly, I'm not going to name any specific heists in Payday 2 because I know that if I do, people are going to argue with me and say, that's not the heist I want to put over, you should put this over. So we'll leave it as a matter of opinion to different people, but there are, without question, certain heists in Payday 2 that would really do well to come back with a fresh engine, a fresh touch-up of graphics and all that stuff, and just basically let you live out those experiences again in the next game in the franchise. And as for Payday the Heist, I would very much like to see First World Bank return. I will name that one specifically because that is my favourite classic heist. I love First World Bank, but there are some brilliant jobs, and the thing I like about Payday the Heist, which is ironic seeing I never actually played it, but every heist in Payday the Heist was so unique and so different. They all had their own story, their own setting, their own vibe. So honestly, even though I like First World Bank as much as I do, any heist out of those could come to Payday 3 and I'd be very happy because they're all really, really impressive. So you never know. They may well bring them back. We'll just have to see. But I think it is entirely viable for them to bring back some classic heists. And then the thing that you want to talk about from that front is if they remaster heists, that means they could also remaster music. As a lot of you know, when they bring back certain heists, they bring remixes of their original themes into the Payday 2 version. For instance, with the Wolfpack DLC, when they brought out Counterfeit, they had Home Invasion, which was the track that was originally on Payday the Heist, but they'd already released that on Payday 2, so they made a new version called Home Invasion 2016. And it was a really good remix, I think personally better than Home Invasion itself. That's just my opinion though. But they basically gave it a fresh take so that while it was an old heist returning to the game, it had a little bit of a new touch to it because the music was slightly different should you choose to play it in that sense. And it's still completely possible that Simon Vickler could come back and work on the music for Payday 3 and work on some remixes if they bring back old heists, because while he is working with 10 Chambers to work on GTFO's release for PC, he has actually said that he did leave Overkill to start with to do more freelance music composition and production. So for him to be hired by Overkill the way they have hired him in the last few years, they could easily keep doing that, keep bringing Simon back, so the music could still be just as good as we all know and love. Weapons and skills is something that needs discussion purely because of what's happened with Raid World War II and Overkill's The Walking Dead. For those of you who haven't played either of those games, both of them have a skill system in which you pick a certain class/character and they have their own skills. This is something that I personally am not a fan of in any way, shape or form. I know some people really like that. You pick a character, they have a specific kind of talent or skill. For instance, you can level up melee weapons or guns or being more stealthy. I like the idea, but my thing with Payday 2, and I think it's one of the reasons I loved the game so much, and I'm sure there are other people here who will agree with me on this, but Payday 2 for me succeeds a lot because there is such creative freedom. You can play as any heister at any point with any gun, any whatever, and you can just build whatever build you want for any different perspective, and it doesn't cost you anything to remove your skill points and just pick another build. You can have up to 15, and you can literally have one for stealth, one with LMGs, one that gives you Inspire, one that you can drop ammo, one where you have turrets. There is so much creative freedom, and I feel like they've regressed back and they've lost that touch with Overkill's The Walking Dead and in turn with Raid, because the problem that I've heard is that definitely with Raid, I played the game, I know that, but I've heard with Overkill's The Walking Dead the same thing applies, where if you change your character, or like your class so to speak, and you want to try something else, you have to go from the start. Your progress doesn't carry over. Let's just say, for very loose explanation, I know this isn't how it works, but let's imagine that in Overkill's The Walking Dead, you're level 15 and you got 15 skill points, and you've picked certain areas that you could level up that character in that specific field, and you want to switch over and play as a different character. you won't start at level 15 with that character, with those skill points. You will start from 0 or 1, whatever the starting level is, and work your way up from there. There is no progress carried over. You've got to go from the beginning, which sucks. I really, really dislike that about it. If I want to play a fresh game, I'll make a new account on my Xbox, or I'll click fresh start. That's my decision. I don't like the fact that if I want to play as a new character, just to try different things out with the skill points that I have, I can't do that. It really annoys me. That's just something that grinds my gears, and I hope I'm not alone on that front. That is just me personally. I really like the fact that I can level up as much or as little or as quick or as slow as I want in Payday 2, and it doesn't matter at any point whether I change my guns, my skill sets, anything like that. I can be a stealth guy at one point in Infamy 24, and yet at Infamy 9 I could have been wielding an LMG, and it won't have made any difference overall in the grand scheme of things. That is what should continue in Payday 3. But the fact that now Overkill have done this in Overkill's The Walking Dead, as well as Line Gain Line doing it in Raid World War 2, it concerns me, and I really, really don't want it to, but I'm a bit nervous about it. It's something I want your opinions on. Do you think they should have specific skill sets for characters, or at least classes in inverted commas, or do you think they should keep Payday 2's creative freedom? Something I want to know from you guys, let me know down below. And then to loosely touch on weapons, I just want to see as many options as there are in Payday 2. I really like that you have all these different options where it's, you know, high damage, low ammo pool, low damage, high ammo pool, and they mix things up, but the way all the different guns work are worded, they all have their own little unique talents, most of them tend to anyway, or unique attachments, or even skins, which I know console don't have, but hopefully if they put it in the base game with Payday 3, we can get it from the start on consoles. I don't really know. But basically just keep the amount of options you have for weapons the same, and keep adding new ones in, keeping it fresh, and I'll be very happy. But my main gripe is about the skill set, so I want to know what you guys think down in the comment section below about that topic. I do want to discuss the release date one more time, just so people have got more of an idea of when I think the game will come out, or at least we'll start to get some information on it regarding its release date and what may be in the game. To do this, I want to cast everyone's mind back to earlier this year when a press statement was released by Starbreeze, basically saying that Raid World War 2 was a complete failure, and as a result they have had to extend Payday 2's development plan, and at the same time make sure that Payday 3 has an accelerated plan and that it releases sooner than they originally anticipated. There is a video on the channel already, so if you want to go check it out, I'll leave a link to it in the description. Please feel free to go give it a look if you're interested. But literally the only thing to take away is that they basically said because Raid World War 2 was a failure, it didn't make the money Starbreeze wanted, they need to get their cash cow Payday to have some more stuff, and some more stuff quickly. So my prediction now is that we'll get some information on Payday 3 sometime next year. Overkill will not want to just drown Overkill's The Walking Dead with Payday 3 news, because then the game would sink and Payday 3 would be all people would talk about. I think they're going to give it at least a year for it to be in the sun, for it to shine, for it to gain players and gain popularity, provided the game continues to stay at least as mediocre as it is right now. The reviews are very mixed, I'm aware of that, but there are people who really like it, and there are people who really dislike it. If they can keep people's attention for at least the next year, I imagine they'll stay quiet and maybe put out a release trailer in mid to late 2019, but the release will be no earlier than 2020. They're going to give at least some time to Overkill's The Walking Dead to get it out there. So my prediction is mid to late 2019 for a trailer, and then release sometime in 2020 or 2021. And you can quote me on that if you want to, if you think that I might be right. Feel free to throw that back at me if I'm wrong on it, because I'll laugh about it just as much as you will. But that is my prediction, that's where I stand. And as always, I want to know what you think down below in the comment section. Finally, as some closing remarks, I just want to talk about a couple of other things that I've heard people mention that I thought would be a good idea. First off, customizable suits. That would be amazing. Having you be able to pick what outfit you take to a heist would be a really nice touch. I'd very much like to see that come into the game. Secondly, I would very much like to see the driving mechanics improved in the second game, and just more driving in general. It did feel in Payday 2 like the handling was worse than driving wheels made out of soft butter, but it honestly was really nice to drive away in a getaway car. Even in Goat Simulator Day 2, I know Goat Sim is not a popular heist, I'm not a massive fan of it, but that segment of driving the Longfellow down along the freeway dodging the cops is one of the best things I've ever seen in Payday 2. It was a really, really nice feeling. I really liked it, and we need more stuff like that. Just improve the handling and make it flow a little bit better. And then the third and final thing I just want to give my little bit of approval on, so to speak, is a custom map designer or map editor, whatever you want to call it, similar to something maybe in the Far Cry games, where you can make your own heist and send it out for other people to try. Again, this comes down to logistics. Just like I said earlier about the open world section, I don't know whether Overkill would have the time or the resources to assign the finance to actually creating something like that for people to make custom heists. I think the only way you get a custom heist is to play on PC and download mods. It sucks, but that's just the way I see it. I don't really think they could actually pull off something that grand in Payday 3. Who knows though, I could be wrong and I would very much like to be wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to be a pessimist, I want to be a realist. Talking about the things I'd like to see, but also knowing that not everything will happen the way that I want, or the way that you guys want. But that sums up everything I want to talk about in this week's video, discussing Payday 3. Now, while I'm aware the chances are this video will get nowhere near as much traction as the last video, if you guys could share this video to Overkill, let them know and get them to see what we've been talking about in this video and down below in the comments section. Who knows, maybe we could influence them a little bit more towards how Payday 3 will work, because the community are here discussing it, and Overkill have said already that's what they want to see. They want to see people discussing the game, all the features they want to see, what's good and bad about Payday 2, what they want to see come back, or just stay in Payday 2 and never see the light of day again. There is plenty to discuss about Payday 3, and I'll be very happy to make another video on this game when we have some more information. But just like the last video, I'm going to leave it now for a while to sit, to simmer, and see what you guys have to say. I doubt it'll be another 10 months till a Payday 3 video, because it was that long since the last one, but I'm not going to push it. We'll wait, we'll see what happens in terms of information, and go from there. So, other than that, thank you all very, very much for watching this video. If you did watch the previous Payday 3 video, thank you for your support on that. It means the world to me. For it to be the second most popular video on the entire channel is nuts, so I really, really appreciate you guys for that. But thank you all for swinging by, watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, as always, you know what to do. Leave a like on the video to show me that you appreciated it. We'll be back next week with hopefully some console news from Goris, if there is any to discuss. If not, I've got a brand new build video I'm going to be working on very soon for you guys to see. But other than that, thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all very, very soon. I don't know whether I'll live stream again just yet, because I've had some more capture card issues, so we'll just have to see what's going on that front. But other than that, I'll see you all very soon. Hope you have a brilliant day and a lovely weekend. Everyone take it easy. Have a good time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.